Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.
Well, it's
okay. A palate cleanser of sorts. I want people to go on the website, go on YouTube, go on Instagram, whatever, to check out the photos because it's... Okay, so the previous guests I had, Pat Daly, is a test pilot. And the photos he gave was a real kind of adventure, you know? And
Whoa.
it really also fun, you know? So in the same way, so this photo is just... I love this adventure you've given me. It's like... The photo makes no sense because it's like you're shooting. Okay, so in the middle, I'll explain it for the listener. Okay, so somebody, it's like a kid or it's like a small person right in the middle of the center of the frame is standing on a kind of beach. And it's not pebble. It looks like a completely brushed, smooth sand. In the foreground is dry grasses. On the right, breaking into the frame is a kind of semi-coniferous tree.
Okay, yeah.
In the background are more conifers. It could be cedar. It could not. Maybe it's not a beach, but the sand or the surface looks like it could be a beach. But you see, there's no water. There's what maybe in the corner, the right bottom corner, there's a little bit of water, but hard to know what the anchor is. What's cool about the perspective is that it's super wide angle, so it's like there's a bit of distortion in the corners. It's a really great, you provided really arresting images. So what's this image?
Okay, so that actually is Winter. That's a little local pond nearby where I often hike with the dog, or as a family we'll go there sometimes. We call that the frog pond. So in the summer, there's a ton of frogs there, and in the spring, a lot of tadpoles. It's very exciting to watch them grow and become frogs. And in the winter, it does freeze over, and it's completely safe to walk on. Like,
nice.
So we actually encountered like a hiker coming back or something, and we're like, "How's that pond?" He's like, "Oh my God, it's frozen like at least 2 or 3 feet through. Like you can walk on it." And he walked out. He had walked out across it, and I'm always very nervous about that stuff because all the movies they show people going through ice, So
yeah.
I'm like, but he was like completely safe. So Lyra my daughter, who's 11, was completely very excited to go and try it out and go on there and mess around on the ice a little bit, and just was having a great time, kind of, sort of hanging out on the ice.
So I'm from Montreal.
Oh my God, Montreal! Okay. I love Montreal so much. I can't even tell you how much I love Montreal.
Okay. So I'm from Montreal, and when I see what threw me off is I don't see snow, but it's a frozen. Okay, so it's a frozen pond, and somebody, I guess your daughter is walking across it. And what's weird to me is I don't see snow on the trees. So I would never have thought, oh, that's a winter scene. So that's really fascinating to me. Okay, so let's imagine. Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, we haven't had as much snowfall here as we would like, but we did have a lot of very cold days.
Okay.
For a few weeks or a couple months, really. So that's why we've had some times of frozen ponds and rivers, but not a whole lot of snow on trees.
Right.
So.
Okay, so I'm going to say to you, this image either is an explicit metaphor in your mind, or it's an implicit metaphor that we're going to figure out what that is. But so why did your mind settle on this one?
Well, this one was more just like a snapshot of local life here, I was thinking, because the invitation was like, try to provide more recent photos because that's what's kind of on your brain and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And so, scrolling through all the pictures, I was like, well, how about a shot of nature, and what we see all the time. But I can see the sort of walking on thin ice, although this ice was not thin. So it was really walking on thick ice.
This is through the pandemic? This
was like in January or February, I think we took this picture. Okay. So just recently.
Wow, okay.
But we visited that pond a lot through the pandemic, especially when schools were, at home on Zoom in the first part of the pandemic, when they didn't have like a school structure really in place yet. Like they would, meet with a person for like an hour or something, and then have to do sort of computer assignments or whatever, and then kind of on their own. So Lyra and I actually did a ton of hiking that first spring, 2020, and exploring. That's actually when I found this particular hike, which is less than 3 miles from my house. And I had no idea about it for the last 12 years or whatever, living here. So I was like, wow, this is amazing. We're finding all these little hikes nearby, and I can 2 minutes to drive there, and there's cute ponds and beautiful trees and sometimes mushrooms. Yeah. Stuff like that.
My daughter is 10. So same cohort. I have a single. Do you have more than one child or?
Just one, just the 11-year-old.
Us too. Us. She's 10. So, okay, let's talk about the parallels or the completely opposed or different experience of growing up 10 in the 70s and 80s and growing up 11 today. What is the quality of conversation?
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, it is night and day, and I talk to my daughter about that a lot, actually, because I really don't remember having any in-depth conversations with my parents or really talking about feelings much. My parents are baby boomers and slightly, on the cusp of that silent generation. So really not a lot about feelings. It was still coming out of that, 50s, Leave It to Cleaver sort of.
In Texas.
In Texas, keeping up with the Joneses, trying to look a certain way. So it was all about appearing a certain way to everyone else in the world, behaving a certain way at all times. It was still a lot of that children should be seen, not heard kind of mentality going on, So it's completely opposite now. I mean, my daughter, even if I wasn't a therapist, she talks about her feelings constantly. She lets us know right away if she's mad about something or something's unfair, unjust. She's got a lot of energy and spirit and, kind of very chatty, talkative kid, completely different from my memories of my childhood, which is basically being in my room reading, just leave me alone, let me read and stay out of the way, kind of thing. And, biding my time. So there's that. And also, obviously there's a technology piece, right? Because in the 70s and 80s, there was no internet, there was no email, there was no texting, I did have a landline in my room, and that was kind of exceptional.
Oh, wow.
That's because my dad worked at the phone company. So that's how I got to have a landline in my own room. I think even my own phone number at a certain, at age 14 or something like that in my room. So that was pretty great. Yeah.
You have to explain to me what happened to your Texas accent.
So, I grew up in Houston, which is a pretty international city, as we'd like to say, like to think. Many of my friends actually were from other places. I was very lucky with that. And growing up, I had a best friend at the time whose family had just come over from Vietnam, escaping the war there.
Oh, wow.
I had a friend who had just immigrated from Mexico, which was more kind of unusual back then. It was sort of some of the earlier waves of that. And so that seemed more, there was a sense of welcoming them and from another land, Mexico, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I had a friend who'd come over from Japan for a couple of years, their parents for work. Yeah. So I just was around a lot of people who didn't sound Texas, accent style. And then I've been here New England a long time too. So
when I made it to Houston, I had gone there just basically for a weekend, and I'd met this was in the early days of online dating, and I'd met some woman who lived in Houston, and I went down there, and I was just like, I cannot hear anyone with a good, satisfying Texas accent until they were drinking, until people were drinking, and then it came out.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I love it.
That seems about right.
I love it.
Yeah. My dad he's still got a very thick accent because he really grew, was born and raised in Houston and lived there most of his life, but the rest of us don't really, I did not end up with that. Yeah.
Great. So, again, you're talking to me. I'm thinking about the book. Okay, so talk about the book. How long did it take for you to write this?
Well, they gave me 14 months, thank God, because of the pandemic. I'd asked for a couple extra months. Usually they give you 12 months.
Your publisher?
My publisher, which is Springer. So they publish mostly these professional types of books. They publish a lot of the EMDR books. They also have other nursing, and other domains or whatever. They had heard of. I had given a talk at the National EMDR conference in California in 2019, so they picked up on that. And that's how this book happened. They contacted me, would you want to turn this into a book? And I was like, this is the best email I've ever had in my whole entire life. Yes, of course I want to turn this into a book.
Is this your first?
This is my first book like this.
Woo!
So I do have a little poetry chat book. There's a picture of that later on, but this is my first like heavy duty, like thousands of people will buy this hopefully. So.
I think you have another skill that I haven't brought attention to, but I love how you're able to talk about your work as an author and as a writer, which is my happy place. And as you do it, you have this nervous tick of chirping like a bird. I love it.
Oh, no, that's my bird. That's my actual bird.
Sure it is. Sure it is.
It's hilarious, though.
I love it.
And sometimes I bring my bird to work, and so my clients get to hear, like, over Zoom.
Awesome.
The bird. I have to explain. That's, oh, Tiki's agreeing with you right now.
It's the best. It's the best. And because Tiki spoke up, I guess we have to go on to the next photo.
Sure.
Sweet. I'm loving this conversation, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I'm really enjoying talking to you. I really appreciate it.
So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.